Good afternoon. My name is Peter Dreier. I'm a professor of public policy at Occidental College, and I'm the director of the Urban and Environmental Policy program at that college. I've had 3 decades of experience as a researcher, scholar, and government official, working on the areas of economic and community development. I just want to raise 4 questions about these compacts. I'm not for them or against them. I think there are some important issues that haven't been addressed and need to be thought about. I'm currently conducting research on the likely effects of the proposed $60 billion agreement to triple the size of the casinos and add 22,500 additional slots in California and create what will likely be the largest casinos in the world or among the largest in the world. So my research and my forthcoming report focuses on 4 questions. First, does the revenue sharing formula work in California's public interest? The forecast revenue sharing formula, about 12.6% and 18.3% of net win, compares extremely unfavorably to the 25% in Connecticut, the 50% in Florida, and the 55% in Pennsylvania. Is that a good deal? Since increased revenue sharing is one of Governor Schwarzenegger's main arguments in favor of the expansion, I think it needs to be looked at in its context, especially given that the LAO said that the compact-related sources will provide the general fund with less than 0.5% of its annual revenues in the foreseeable future. Second, and I think most important, what are the risks to Californians following the Colorado River decision, eliminating all federal regulations and, for all intents and purposes, all independent oversight of tribal casinos? Given the elimination of federal gambling regulation and auditing, what are the practical problems that would impede the state's ability to obtain revenue sharing in the proposed agreements? Without federal internal controls, what are some of the public safety and law enforcement risks that emerge from authorizing what will be among the biggest casinos in the world? The National Indian Gaming Commission was previously very active in California, but currently there is no effective replacement. What are the risks and the potential remedies to protect California residents, and why should we ratify these agreements when these questions are still pending? Now, these are not just questions that I am asking. Both Governor Schwarzenegger and Senator Dianne Feinstein raised serious concerns about the vacuum of government oversight of Indian gaming in separate letters to Senator Brian Dorgan, the chair of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. In his letter, which I have here from Governor Schwarzenegger, in his letter, Governor Schwarzenegger called for federal legislation to allow the federal government, through the National Indian Gaming Commission, to establish and enforce the minimum internal control standards for Indian gaming. What does this mean? By doing so, in this letter, the governor is acknowledging that current state oversight, including those in the proposed compacts, are seriously inadequate. In her letter, which I have here, Senator Feinstein expressed deep concern, quote unquote, about the elimination of federal oversight of Indian gaming. She wrote in this letter, even if the state were to take measures to address the current oversight deficiencies, it could take years for an updated, effective enforcement regime to be established and effective. Third, and I only have 4, third, what about the distributional effects of the proposed agreements? In other words, do these proposals advance the very important public policy goals of addressing poverty and the welfare of Native Americans? Or do these agreements benefit a tiny minority of California's Indian population? According to the Census Bureau, the 5 tribes with amendments before this committee comprise just 0.6%, less than 1%, of California Indians. However, the current agreements seem to create a virtual cartel for a small, wealthy, and select group of small but powerful tribes that contribute enormous amounts of money to elected officials. Fourth, and finally, the legislature must study and understand fully the effects of these proposed huge casinos on their host communities. While the legislature is understandably focused on the general fund, As a former local government official and a policy analyst, I think we need to seriously explore the local environmental, fiscal, and public safety effects of these proposed huge casinos. Is the state government taking every step necessary to ensure local communities can protect themselves from the negative effects of these casinos? And is the state empowering local residents to have a voice and contribute to the production of a sustainable future for their communities? Or are we being shortchanged on the promise of more gaming, more revenue, and left to simply hope that benefits will reach beyond less than 1% of California's tribal members? So in conclusion, there is no question that this committee needs to conduct a very thorough examination of the proposed agreements. They carry with them a 23-year term and no provisions for later amendments or revision. My preliminary research has identified a set of very fundamental questions about the proposed agreements that this committee needs to examine in thorough detail, and I offer my support to this committee's careful deliberations about the significant and long-term effects of these proposed agreements.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.